1 in 10 marriages on Earth is between cousins. Not ancient history, not isolated tribes. This is happening right now, and in some regions, that number climbs far higher. In Pakistan, it approaches 60%. In parts of Saudi Arabia, closer to 70%. But here's what almost no one tells you. This system was never built around love. It was built to protect something else: wealth, land, power. And tonight, you'll see exactly how it works. From the mechanics of the contract, to the biological price paid across generations, to the one fracture point that is beginning to crack the entire structure from the inside. Tonight, you're going inside a system that has survived for centuries. Not because people question it, but because they don't. But to understand how it endures, you have to start at the foundation, the system itself. In many tribal societies, cousin marriage wasn't just allowed, it was preferred. In parts of the Middle East and North Africa, marrying your father's brother's daughter, known as bint am, was considered the ideal match. Not taboo, not controversial, expected. It had a name, it carried social weight, it was coded as honor. Among Pashtun communities, marriage inside the clan reinforced alliances and preserved stability. Marrying outside? That meant bringing a stranger into the bloodline and risk into the system. But in Bedouin culture, it went even further. The preferred male cousin, the Ibn held a legal right of first refusal. Not metaphorical, legal. If a woman's father attempted to give her to an outsider, the cousin could formally intervene and block the marriage. The system had enforcement built in. This wasn't about romance, it was about control over lineage, and control over what lineage carried, which leads directly to the real architecture underneath. Once you understand the economics, everything clicks. In agrarian societies, land wasn't just property, it was survival, status, power across generations. If a daughter married outside the family, land moved, wealth moved, influence weakened. So the solution was simple: keep marriage inside. In parts of South Asia, systems like wada sada, give and take marriages, locked families together. No outsiders, no leakage, a closed loop. But it went further than property. In Arab tribal systems, the mahr, the formal bridal payment, stayed inside the extended family when cousins married. Money circulated within the bloodline, never leaving, never diluting the asset base. Across regions, from North Africa to South Asia, the pattern repeats. Marriage isn't just social, it's financial architecture, deliberately engineered, carefully maintained, quietly enforced. And the people inside it? They don't see the engineering. They see family. They see loyalty. They see tradition. That gap between what the system is and what it feels like is where everything changes. Not on the outside, but from within. Now step inside it. You grow up with this person. Shared childhood, shared memories. No clear boundary between family and future spouse. Your brain has already categorized them, not as a stranger, not as a romantic possibility, as kin. Then one day, it changes, not gradually, instantly. The person your mind categorized as family is now your partner, and there's no transition, no reset, just expectation. Psychologists have a name for this natural resistance: the Westermark effect. People raised in close physical proximity from early childhood develop an instinctive aversion, a biological desensitization to romantic attraction toward that person. It's not cultural, it's neurological. But here's what the architects of this system understood. Centuries before the term existed, the Westermark effect can be engineered around. In many of these communities, male and female cousins are deliberately separated after a certain age. Physical distance is maintained. Contact is rationed. Proximity is controlled, specifically to prevent the biological aversion from forming before the marriage is arranged. The system didn't leave that to chance. In cultures where this is normalized, people don't question it because they were never taught to. Stability comes first, feelings come second, and the system made sure of that. But here's what the system never warned them about. The bill it sends doesn't arrive immediately. It arrives in the next generation. There's a biological dimension, and it's often understated or avoided. When close relatives have children, the probability of shared recessive genes increases. That raises the risk of certain genetic disorders. For unrelated couples, the risk of congenital conditions is roughly 2 to 3%. For first cousins, it rises to about 4 to 6%. Still a minority, but noticeably higher. And when this pattern repeats across generations, the risks don't stay flat. They stack. History has shown exactly what that accumulation looks like. The Habsburg dynasty of Europe is the most documented case on record. For nearly 2 centuries, the Habsburgs married within a tight network of relatives, cousins, nieces, uncles. The goal was simple: preserve the empire. Keep the bloodline royal. The result, Charles II of Spain. His inbreeding coefficient exceeded that of a child born from a direct sibling marriage. He couldn't chew properly. He suffered seizures. He was infertile. He died at 38. No heir. An empire ended by its own architecture. But even today, this remains a sensitive topic in communities where the practice is common, because questioning it doesn't just challenge biology, it challenges the system itself. And the system doesn't surrender quietly, which is exactly why, even now, breaking free is far more complicated than it looks. Now, something is changing. Migration, urbanization, exposure to different lifestyles. In diaspora communities, especially in Western countries, younger generations are starting to step away from the system, not loudly, quietly. In the UK, researchers tracking Pakistani and Bangladeshi diaspora communities have documented a pattern that repeats across families. First generation, system intact. Second generation, compliance under pressure. Third generation, open refusal. 3 generations, same bloodline, completely different threshold. They compare what was expected versus what is possible. And once that comparison exists, it cannot be undone. Because saying no doesn't just affect one marriage. It disrupts family expectations, economic structures, generational patterns. For older generations, this feels like loss. For younger ones, it feels like freedom. But the system doesn't let go without a fight. Because the mechanism keeping it in place isn't a rule. It's something far more durable. The most powerful part of this system isn't force, it's normalization. You don't feel controlled when what surrounds you feels normal. Social psychologists call this normative influence. People align with what their group defines as acceptable, not because they're forced to, but because it feels right. So inside the system, obedience feels like loyalty. Compliance feels like love. Resistance feels like exile. Because in many of these cultures, rejecting the system doesn't just create social friction, it creates total severance, financial cutoff, community removal, family exile. The cost of leaving isn't just emotional, it's structural, it's economic, it's permanent, and that's why it lasts. Not because the system is more powerful than the individual, but because the individual was built inside the system. And dismantling it means dismantling part of themselves. That's the architecture working exactly as designed. So now we come to the real question. Is this culture or is it control? Because at its core, this is a system that preserves wealth, maintains structure, limits choice, and it survives, not because it's enforced, but because it's internalized. Ask a person raised inside this system why they married their cousin. Most won't say, because my family needed to retain land. They'll say, because it was the right thing to do. That's the architecture working exactly as designed. The system converted compliance into conscience, and the individual never noticed the conversion. Some people within it find genuine happiness. Others follow it because they were never given a real alternative. And that difference is everything. The system doesn't care which one you are, as long as the bloodline stays closed. If this opened your eyes to how deeply systems can shape something as personal as marriage, subscribe. Because the next story goes even further, into a practice still happening today, where the rules are stricter and the consequences are far more extreme.